We are just approving a borrowing, about 2.2 billion, to fund the budget. What budget if we are not secured?
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, this again is an indication that we are not able to capture every piece of our land from the insurgents. That is unfortunate. But before I comment on what we need to do, let me commend our military for working so hard to ensure that we secure our lands and protect our territorial integrity. Mr. President, the story is we don't have enough boots on the ground. So we need a task force of some sort that the military is able to occupy areas that it could capture, and the police and other security agencies will now be moved in to reestablish civilian authority. Mr. President, Boko Haram was defeated at one point almost completely. Some will say technically defeated. But what is important to an average citizen is not technically or completely. Our citizens, our indigents need safe and secured towns and cities and hamlets. So the case of our brother from Borno North is a case that we must ensure that we do something. This we can do together with the executive arm of government. In the prayers, I think the request is for the Air Force and the Army. This is a normal joint operational activity. And therefore, the Chief of Defense Staff is supposed to be at the helm of this particular affair, and the services can come in. But we are also lucky, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, that we are yet to pass the budget for 2025. We should look at this, and indeed similar areas that are challenged in this kind of situation. Because no matter what we do, no matter how hard we wish and we could provide infrastructure, the infrastructure can only be useful to the people if they are safe and protected. So I believe that we should tailor some resources in this area, and let's find out which are the areas. Is it in the northwest? Is it in the north central? Is it in the southeast or south-south or southwest that are not in our hands? We need to recapture them. Thank you very much, Mr. President, for the privilege.
Senate, this Senate, when I say this Senate, not the 10th Senate, listening to some of the contributions, we have to agree that we too, as senators, could do better through our military oversight functions. Somebody mentioned that we bought the wrong helicopters to Kano or whatever, and that we were supposed to buy gun attack or whatever. What was the role of the Senate oversight function to ensure that we don't just buy equipment, we buy what is appropriate? If the military chiefs have reasons to do differently, the purpose of our oversight is to refocus procurement to coincide with what we believe is most suitable. But my challenge is, can we claim to know better? We not being not being military people, not having had the opportunity of being trained, we seem to know what ought to be procured, rather what has been procured. For me, the challenge, therefore, is, like someone said, throwing money at a problem doesn't solve it. And in an earlier motion, prayers are added. So I think earlier in the year, I talked about the need for our committees involved in defense, army, navy, air force, not only to make the case for more spending, but to ensure that when we have appropriated, that monies are used to procure the things we need to enhance the competence of our people. Lastly, we should say nothing in these chambers as if to suggest that the army is not doing something. A lot of young men, a lot of officers and men have paid the supreme price fighting Boko Haram and other security and other criminals in different parts of the country. So even in a moment like this, when we are in pain, we are worried about the seemingly endless nature of this challenge, we mustn't fail to acknowledge, because I do know a number of very promising young men, officers and men that have been wasted, I wouldn't say wasted, who have paid the supreme price so that we can be safe. That they have not put an end to it should not make us to make comment that may be demoralizing. We should acknowledge the price they have paid. We should put them in our prayers, and I want us to challenge our committee on defense, our committee on army and navy to go beyond procurement and do proper oversight and refocus the procurement policies of the armed forces. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleagues, once more, we are faced with another round of debate and speeches on the issue of insecurity. I seize this opportunity, therefore, to sympathize with my colleague and brother, Senator Mongunu, and commiserate with the families of those affected in this current imbroglio. Mr. President, it is sad that we are talking about this issue in spite of the spirited efforts by the government and the armed forces of Nigeria and all other security agencies involved in combating the menace of insecurity. Mr. President, as rightly pointed out by the mover of this motion, time was when the activities of Boko Haram was literally wiped out or decimated. But we will continue to have this recurring decimal in Borno in particular, and then in some other parts, other forms of insecurity activities taking place. Mr. President, like he rightly pointed out, there was a time that this thing was literally nipped in the bud. But unfortunately, I think that what we failed to do was taking some proactive measures to ensure that these insurgents did not come back to the cities. At a point, the idea of holding forces was mooted, in which it was agreed that a special force be trained specifically to hold the liberated areas where Boko Haram activities were taking place. But unfortunately, Mr. President, as it were, nothing of that nature has happened. And so it becomes very easy for Boko Haram and its agents to come back to areas that have been liberated by our armed forces. Mr. President, I think it was suggested on the floor of this Senate before that it doesn't solve our problem if we continue to debate and provide solutions to the problem of insecurity, especially the activities of Boko Haram, if we do not muster the sufficient courage to give a kind of timeline to our armed forces and our security agents to nip these insecurity activities across the country. Mr. President, I think it is not correct, because I know that the Nigerian military and security agencies are professional enough to know when to start a war and when to end a war. I am not sure that those of us who are living witnesses to the Biafran war noticed that the Biafran war took this long to nip in the bud. Whether it is asymmetrical or normal war, I think that we must find answers to the solution to the problem of our insecurity. And so once more, while I sympathize with the people of the local government occupied by the Boko Haram insurgents, I want to urge the armed forces and our security agents to take very proactive actions in liberating these communities from the hands of these insurgents. I thank you, Mr. President.
My name is Karimi. I represent the people of Kogi West. Yes, security of lives and property is a basic responsibility of government. We are all part of government. If we go into some of our communities, we see the locals contributing one way or the other to the security of their environment. I saw, as part of this prayer, that the government, Nigeria, should establish a military base in a community there. Sometimes we can also lead by example. Like I just discussed with my brother, Senator Ndume. We can come together as the leader of the state to mobilize the legislature in the state to see how we can use part of our National Intervention Fund to contribute something to the security of our environment. If you can secure the lives and properties of our people, that is the best thing we can do for them. Rather than coming and talking every day. We should lead by example. I also discussed with him, you should see the Chadian leader that led his people to the front. It's because he understands that terrain. We can also, as leaders, I told him, lead. He can provide himself as the leader, so that I can lead like Chadian president that knows the terrain of that place, to lead our military on operation there. So it is leading by example. So we don't just blame everything on government. Our military, they are trying. They are overstretched. And we need to do all possible to come to their aid. Thank you.
It was Borno, but it is everywhere now. Most of us cannot easily visit and dine with our electorates because our villages are no more safe. President of the Senate and my colleagues, even 3 days ago, my constituents were killed by these terrorists. I personally feel, just as contributed by Senator Ahmed Lawal, that the 2025 budget is about to come to us. I feel that apart from acquiring more weapons, we need more recruit of personnel into our security agencies, because the ratio of our population to security personnel is very low. We must deliberately appropriate more funds for recruitment of our youths into the security forces. When we have that, sir, it will take care of unemployment and will also provide security to our people. Our villages are not safe. And if our electors are not safe, we are not safe too, sir. I pray that...
Thank you very much. Your time is up.
Thank you, sir. I agree, sir.
By our leader, Senator Monguno. This issue of insecurity, especially the issue of Boko Haram, is risk-spacing gradually. Even in some part of Yobe State, a lot of local governments in Yobe State that are bordering this local government he mentioned are also facing the same problem, the same attacks. You can remember that there are some attacks 2 months ago in Mafa in Termua local government of Yobe State, where a lot of people were killed and a lot of properties were destroyed by these Boko Haram insurgents. Recently also, there are a series of attacks in Gaidam local government in Yobe State and Yunusari local government in Yobe State. Those local government are also bordering those areas he had mentioned. Therefore, I totally align myself with the suggestion by His Excellency, the leader, the former President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, that a serious action should be taken to curtail these issues of Boko Haram that are resurfacing now recently. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Wadada Ahmed Aliyu. You have the floor.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I remain Senator Ahmed Wadada Aliyu Sarkin Yakin Kefi, the famous horse rider. Of course, the importance of this motion cannot be overemphasized. And I think by all intent and purposes of commitment, our colleagues have spoken and virtually have said it all, with the exception of what I am going to say. Regardless of where these bandits are from, they are locally incubated or internationally coordinated, they cannot achieve their set objectives fully in any local environment if they do not have some level of support of the natives or locals there. And so, to weaken them is one of the things that makes it much easier for them to recruit our youth, is because of poverty. Hunger is a major vehicle of poverty, violence, and every negativity that obtains today in every society. So all I'm trying to say, in looking for ways to alleviate this problem, we must also talk about the situation that the citizens of this country are in. An average Nigerian citizen is entangled in poverty. Of course, efforts are being made across board by governments to see that solutions or hunger or poverty is adequately taken care of in the country. But much more needs to be done. And if we take care of poverty, of course it will reduce the rate at which these bandits recruit our youth into their activities. So to me, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, as representatives of the people here, we must at all times ensure that we give support, and not only give support, we look for ways and means that Nigerians, the situation of Nigerians will be better cushioned so that they remain focused and, of course, nationalistic in their thinking and conduct. I so contribute. Thank you, Mr. President.
One, all the Nigerian armed forces to establish a super camp at Guzamala local government area and mobilize adequate personnel to serve, to secure Abadam and multi-local government areas of Borno State. Those in favor of this prayer, please say aye. Those in favor of this prayer, please say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Mandate the Committee on Army and Air Force to ensure implementation. Those in favor of this prayer, please say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Let me thank the mover of this motion, the Chief Whip of the Senate, and all those who contributed to the debate. This is something that is appropriate and is something that is good to help to restore peace in the aforementioned local governments. Abadan, of course, Wuzamala, Abadan, and multi-local governments areas. Of course, as said by some of us, we need to commend our men and women in uniform who are doing their best every day since the beginning of Boko Haram insurgency to secure our areas in Borno and elsewhere, and to also safeguard our people. Some of them have paid the supreme price. Some of them have been injured. Some of them have been incapacitated. They've done us proud. They are doing us proud in protecting the sovereignty of our nation, our territory as a nation. We commend them and we pray for them. But we need to ask them to continue to help us so that we secure these areas, to restore peace in these areas. They've done it before and we know they can do it. And we urge them that more grease should be on their elbows. We don't take what they are doing for us, what they are doing for the nation for granted. We are proud of them, we commend them, and we pray for them. And we also commend Mr. President for all that he has been doing to bring total peace to this country. It's not an easy thing. The problem of insecurity is something that has international dimension. Wars are being fought in all parts of the globe. Ukraine, war is going on there, Gaza, and so many other areas. And the problem of terrorism is all over the world, everywhere. No country is immune to terrorism. So it's something that has international dimension. It's not something that's peculiar to this country alone. And we know how much Mr. President is doing, going all over the world to secure collaboration with other nations to deal with this international phenomenon. It's not something that a nation can fight alone. They have an international connection. The terrorists are not from Nigeria. They are from other nations. Some are Arabs, some are black Africans, and so on and so forth. Some could even be from the Middle East. Who knows? So it's something that the leadership of the country is doing to have that international collaboration, sharing of intelligence, and so on and so forth to deal with the situation. We commend Mr. President for what he's doing. And we're very sure with the cooperation that the National Assembly is providing to Mr. President and other security agencies, we'll be able to deal with this matter. So I thank you, the Chief of the Federation, Chief of the Senate. I used to call your predecessor, the former Chief of I used to call him Chief of the Federation. I do call him, I still call him like that, Chief Whip Emeritus. So thank you very much for sponsoring this bill. You are known for your resilience, for your determination to help your people. Please continue on what you've been doing to help your people right from the House of Representatives. So it's on this note that I thank everyone I commend everyone for your contribution to this debate. And please, the leader is going to move for us to adjourn so as to come back later so that we can pass the vote and proceeding in order to make sure that we don't go against the time in respect of the report that was adopted, report that was submitted by the local and foreign committee in respect of the loan that the country is going to acquire to get. Because once we don't do that today, it will go against the time and we'll put the entire process in jeopardy. So please, I plead to everyone to come back after we've taken our lunch so that we can pass the votes and proceeding. Leader.